Did Trent Baalke get in the way of the Jaguars hiring Ben Johnson? Let's talk about it here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, what's happening, Jaguar fans? This is Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, where we thank you for making us your first listen. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts, whether you watch them or hear them or listen to them. And wherever that location is, man, please make sure you tap in each and every day so you do not miss an episode of the Locked On Jaguars podcast that is brought to you today by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Shout out to those everydayers and to the newcomers as well. Hope you enjoyed today's show. Now let's get right to it. I'm going to let you know exactly what it's all about. Comfort and confusion. I have a lot of that lately. People are confused about the Jaguars looking like they value comfort more than they do change. We'll talk about that. What is next? There's another level of second interviews, and so far, 3 people have been mentioned. We'll discuss that and how we expect that to go. Over analysis of opinions. There are people with strong opinions about the Jaguars, and sometimes they question the authenticity of those opinions based on what do we think people are trying to get for those opinions. I don't know if that's always fair. We'll talk about that. But we're going to start at the very, very top and discuss the subject that is hot and heavy on social media for the Jaguars and all over. Did Trent Baalke hinder the Jacksonville Jaguars? Did he get in the way? And is he the reason that Ben Johnson chose to go to the Chicago Bears? Yes and no is my answer. I'll explain it to you right now. First of all, let's give it some backdrop. Ben Johnson chose not to. Well, Ben Johnson was on the phone, apparently on a plane. Washington GM last year, Peters was on a plane, headed to go talk to Ben Johnson. And Ben Johnson did not, apparently, according to sources, wanted to keep Sam Howell and did not want to draft Jaden Daniels. If that is true, for some reason, that was a deal breaker. We know what the reason is now. Washington was right, and Washington turned the plane around. And then it was later reported that Johnson, whether he said it or whether someone sort of took it upon themselves to say that their opinion of what Ben Johnson was thinking was that there were too many people in Washington that did not have a football background that had an overinflated opinion of their football knowledge. As it turns out, Washington did a whole bunch of things right. They hired Dan Quinn, they drafted Jaden Daniels, and then they beat Detroit in the divisional, and now they're in the NFC Championship. So Ben Johnson knows what is a good fit for him and knows what isn't a good fit for him. Ben Johnson is also a guy that had options. Apparently, Detroit, Dallas, the Raiders, mainly Detroit, the Raiders, the Bears, and the Jaguars were hot and heavy after Ben Johnson. And there was also some rumors about the Dallas situation. And then there's the Jaguars, where Shad Khan did not fire Trent Baalke, did not move on from the entire operation, said that Trent Baalke was going to help him with the coaching search. I'm sure Trent Baalke is his right-hand man because he's the highest-ranking football operations person in the building, and he's sitting in on interviews. You'd have to think that the truth is that people have an opinion about Trent Baalke. And you say if Ben Johnson wasn't going to take the job, then why did he agree to the interview? Those are all valid questions, right? But I also told you that these jobs are not something that these guys take lightly. They always vet the situation as they're being vetted during the interviews. And some coaches do believe, especially from someone that comes from a place as recently as Ben comes from Detroit, where there has to be a connectivity between the GM and the coach. That's what he's seen that has worked. That's what he is doing. And if a team is going out trying to get a Ben Johnson or you're trying to get an Aaron Glenn, because you want a little bit of the DNA that comes from the team that you're watching, who was just side by side with you 4 years ago, and you're saying they're doing something right. I want him to come add a little bit of that to us and do. So if you want him to do what he's doing there, then he probably wants you to do when he gets here what he did there and what he saw there that worked. So to me, the question becomes, how much of this did Trent Baalke's presence play into it? None of us know. None of us know. But I will tell you this. The Chicago Bears didn't have a clean slate front office. Their embattled GM is still there, and he chose them. The Raiders were apparently going to hire this dude's friend, and he didn't choose to go out there. He chose the Bears. Then he didn't get a second interview with the Jaguars, maybe because he was already off the board, or maybe the interview didn't go well. A coach has a right to say, decent job, but I don't think that's where I'll be most successful. And here's the difference. I believe Chicago wants Ben to come and change their entire organization. Whatever you need, tell me, we'll give it to you. Not saying that that's what Shad or Trent Baalke said anything differently. But I will tell you, if you listen to that interview that Shad and Trent Baalke did, it was all about comfort level. It was all about, we need someone. We don't need to reboot everything. We just need the right coach. Almost as if, even though they tell you it's ultimately our responsibility, their actions say this team is a lot better than it's supposed to be. And guess what? We needed to change the coaching staff because the coach didn't know what he was doing. That's what it has come across. So if you didn't fire the GM, if you has that GM in on interviews, if you don't have a clean slate, and then possibly you don't have the messaging and the communication and understanding of exactly what the roles are. If Ryan Poles says, you'll report to me and I'll report to the owner. If Shad Khan says, you'll both report to me separately. To me, Ben Johnson may say, that's not what I want. Because that's not conducive to me being, that's not conducive to us being in lockstep. A lack of a proper chain of command really comes across as there's too many chefs in the kitchen. Usually there's more than one chef in the kitchen, but one is the head chef and one is the sous chef, right? That says that there's a clear direction and a clear trust that whatever I tell you is exactly what you're telling the boss. Sometimes having so much transparency means that you have a lack of trust. When I got to talk to both of y'all separately, it tells me that it's a little bit disjointed. It tells me that you're going to be in the same situation where your team is going to play one way and the guy's going to be talking another. So did Trent Baalke's presence hinder them getting Ben Johnson? On the surface, maybe not, because he interviewed. But when you think that that dude had a chance to pick which job he wants, I think he picked the one that's most comfortable for him, because I think it's more in lockstep and it jives more with exactly what they want to do. I think with the Bears, just offering them the job straight up, they know exactly who he is, what they want. They didn't even have an in-the-face interview with him, and they said, this is what we want to do. I think the fact that the Jaguars still have interviews going on till the end of this week, when I think it's Patrick Graham, Liam Coen, and Robert Saleh. It's Tuesday. They're still planning to talk to people on Friday. They feel they're doing their due diligence. They feel there's no rush. And that also gives the sense that you don't know what you want. You're looking for something that is comfortable. And I don't want to fix your chili that you started cooking. I want to make my own. So ultimately, yeah, I do think his presence caused Ben Johnson to take a better alternative. I don't, however, feel like his presence necessarily is what caused Ben Johnson to say, nah, I don't want to work for that dude. None of us know that. He just had a better situation, one that he probably feels like in just a general, general way of looking at it, the structure that he'll have in Chicago is more like the one that he is used to, as opposed to the structure here in Jacksonville. And he felt like that gives him a better chance to be successful. I'm going to talk about the over-analysis of opinions. And a friend of mine, Tony Boselli, I did not talk to Tony, and I didn't even hear a lot of the things that Tony has been saying on local radio, but a lot of fans seem to be getting pretty upset that Tony is not saying being disingenuous, but that he's saying a lot of things that they don't like, and they think he's doing it for the wrong reasons. I'll discuss that and more here on Locked On Jaguars, not Locked On NFL. You can look at that too, but Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you in part by Game Time. Man, I saw the concert that I'll never forget. It was like the last time Frankie Beverly and Mays actually performed here in Jacksonville, Florida, before his untimely death. I'll never forget that concert, and I'll never forget where I bought the tickets. I bought the tickets at Game Time. Game Time has made it easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Game Time Picks. This feature filters out all the fluff to show you only the incredible deals and great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I love going to sporting events, concerts, and I really love the memories that I get from them, and Game Time helped me do that. I was looking for tickets to an upcoming event recently, a comedy show, and guess what? Game Time had them. Game Time Picks is something that I found amazing deals, could even see the view from my seat before buying those tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off on your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time. What time is it? It is game time. All right, segment 2 here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. I hope you guys didn't think it was cliche and word soup. I just kind of tried to explain a lot of things that people are fighting over these days. You know, these days, if you say, somebody says, what's your favorite condiment? And you say ketchup, and they'll say, oh, you don't like mustard. And that's what happens a lot of times in these conversations about coaching staffs. People often have a certain way that they feel about things, and anyone that does or says anything to the contrary, they call them a hater, or they think they have some sort of ulterior motive. Well, a lot of the talk now has been over Hall of Famer Tony Boselli saying and appearing to deflect or take up for Trent Baalke. I notice I said appearing to. When here's how I look at it. People think Tony jockeying for a job in the organization. All right. I don't know if he is or not, but what I will tell you is this. If he has had talks about getting a job, or if he does desire to get a job in the organization, I think he's obligated to be as honest as he can be to Shad Khan about his feelings about the team. He is not obligated, however, to publicly excoriate that team in front of all of us because we want to see our pound of flesh. That would be counterintuitive to him actually getting a job and getting his foot in the door and try to help it out. Now, I'm not one of those where you got to do whatever you got to do to get a seat at the table, and then hopefully you can make change from the inside. My thing is you need to make your intentions perfectly clear. You just don't have to make them perfectly clear to people on radio or people who are listening in the audience just to satisfy them that you feel exactly the way that they do. What happens more than anything, or what is most important, is what he says in private to the owner and to the GM if he's going to get a job or not. Now, I've talked to Tony just casually at games, in the press box, sometimes at practice. I've had a very cordial, I did radio with Tony way back. I'm thinking this is like 2000 something that we did radio. This is before it was 1010 XL. This is when they were on an AM, and they were over at Inner Park Prize, and I filled in for a whole week on the Frangie and Boselli show early in the morning. And we've always had a very, very cordial relationship. We even have the same doctor in some situations, and we talk about that stuff. Tony's a very, very smart football guy. He is. Now, I don't know if that comes across on radio as him being smug, or if his radio persona is one that you actually hear all of the things that I've heard, because when I hear people talk about the way that they hear him talk as of late, it is not the Boselli that doesn't describe the person I've talked to casually about football. He's a very, very smart guy. He understands the big picture. And let me tell you something. If Tony Boselli is involved in this team, one of the things he is going to emphasize is the offensive line. And the other thing that he is going to emphasize, and I'm not telling you the things that we've discussed, but I am going to give you an idea of where that discussion went. We agree that this offensive line needs to have a heavy, heavy investment. And we agree that they need to play nasty. And you can believe it if you want to not believe it, but guys who played the game the way a two-star recruit like Boselli did, to work his way all the way up to being the second pick and to be in the Hall of Fame with such an abbreviated career, tells you that usually, much like Dan Campbell, people that think like that also expect other people to think like that. So knowing what I just said, that probably lights your fire a little bit. You're probably like, man, I like that. Sometimes publicly, what people say is not privately what they say to the people that they have to say it to. And I do understand that messaging for this team has been a little bit messed up. I don't know if Big Bo is jockeying for a job. I don't know if he's just trying to add a little bit of balance to the situation. Bottom line is this: he's entitled to think what he wants to think without us interjecting. Why? We can disagree with him, but why does he think that way? I just recently, I had a conversation with a friend of mine this morning. I don't mind people disagreeing with me about Lamar Jackson, but don't tell me why I'm taking up for Lamar Jackson, because you don't know why I'm taking up for Lamar Jackson. And it's not anything that anybody would really find to be abnormal or prejudiced or anything like that. I'll tell you if you ask me, but if you accuse me, I won't say anything. So maybe Boselli is getting a little bit of balance to this situation. And I've been in that situation where people think I believe one thing because of some certain reason when they have zero clue. And actually the reason why they thought I believed something was actually the total opposite. So I give the benefit of the doubt. Let's just say Tony has had talks about a job. Why would he come out and talk bad about Trent Baalke when he's going to have to work with him? It doesn't make sense. We're just emotional people. And sometimes when people say things that we don't agree with, we have to make excuses for why they say those things, as opposed to just thinking, well, maybe they just have a different perspective. What's next? We talked about the interviews that'll take place. Patrick Graham, Liam Coen, Robert Saleh. Now, the thinking amongst people, and like I said, none of us really know exactly what is being said because we're not privy to that process, and I won't sit here and pretend that I am. I do have sources, and they've been wrong about this the entire time. Or maybe they were right, and something happened that changed everybody's mind, okay? But they're going to interview all of those guys. The thought is that, like my man Jamal Sincere said, if they hire anybody except Liam Coen, if they hire either one of those other two, he's basically going to pass out. I'm not going to pass out, man, because everyone has asked me who my preferences were, and I've been slow to move on that. And it's not because I want to be right, and I'm not hedging my bets. I really would love for them to name a coach and then let that coach speak and then say, okay, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. That is what I have always done, and I will continue to do that. Give a person the chance to be successful, move my narratives and my thoughts about it out of the way, but then to be deadly honest about what it is that I see and don't buckle. I don't sit here and worry about things that I don't know the answers to. I always leave room for people to be able to do the things that they're going to do. And, you know, like you never know how good or how bad someone is at something, but you at least owe them the benefit of the doubt to give them some grace to see how they're going to be able to do it. Most people think this is Liam Cohen's job or it is Robert Saleh's job, and that talking to Saleh, if he doesn't get it, they're going to ask him to be a coordinator, which I don't think that's going to happen. I think before he's a coordinator in Jacksonville, he'll go back to San Francisco. I do believe, though, that if they give the job to Coen, that Patrick Graham is going to be the defensive coordinator. And I don't really think they're going to give Patrick Graham the head coaching job. I just don't. But that's what I think may be happening here. I think they interviewed a lot of people that they respect, that they knew weren't going to get this job, maybe the Todd Munkins and the Spagnolos of the world, as fishing for ideas. I do think that that's a smart thing to do. Even if you don't plan to make a guy your head coach, you will, you do sit and talk to a dude and say, man, what would you do? And then when you bring in the candidates that you really hire, you sit and see if they say the same things that other guy said. And maybe they'll go, okay, we're on to something. I don't know. But what I do know is there's a lot of confusion. And the confusion is because the Jaguars continue to be a team that has poor messaging, in my opinion. And I think that poor messaging is rooted in wanting to do the right thing. I'll never accuse Shad Khan of not wanting to win. And people say he's making money because the revenue is going up, whether or not I'm not going to put that on him. I think people that want to win and have won in life want to continue winning. You think Shad wants to have clown faces about him? You think he wants to be considered one of the worst owners in the National Football League? No. I don't think anybody wants to endure that kind of stuff. And he knows that if they get good, he'll make more money here in Jacksonville, and a lot of enthusiasm, and they won't even have to struggle to sell tickets. So what is it? What is it is I think Shad Khan is searching for something that you can't find unless you win, and they just don't know how to get to the winning. I'll discuss what that thing is in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you in part by Prize Picks. That's correct, man. Prize Picks is the absolute truth and is the best daily fantasy sports game that I have ever played, man, because all you do is get on there and you pick more or less on player stats like passing yards or touchdowns and a shot to win up to 1,000 times your money. And you can make your picks in less than 60 seconds. And whether you're looking for a flex play to boost your payout or want to cash out quickly, Prize Picks has got you covered. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings, it's clear the people are loving this platform. I've been playing for a while now, and I'm having a blast every weekend, even though the Jaguars aren't in the playoffs. I'm eyeing Saquon Barkley again this week against Washington to see if he can be heroic and get a touchdown. It might happen. He won't slide down like he did the first week. I'm telling you right now, man, I've gotten paid out in as little as 15 minutes when my picks hit. Plus, the weekly promos like Taco Tuesday discounts add even more value to my lineup. Here's a special offer for NFL, Locked On NFL listeners. Download the app today and use the code Locked On NFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, moving along here, third and final segment here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. We've been talking about, did Trent Baalke get in the way? Yeah, I guess. Over analysis of opinions. Yeah, that happens to me all the time. I'm just not saying you're wrong. It's just saying sometimes you get in trouble when you start saying why someone believes or thinks the way that they do. What's next? We talked about the 3 scheduled second interviews and what the implications are for that. And now we'll talk about comfort and confusion. By not starting completely over, which is something I advocated for going all the way back to the middle of the season. Let's say the Jags need a total reboot. This is the kind of conversation you end up with. These are the kind of discussions that happen. These are the types of things that happen. You get all of this speculation that you didn't get a guy that everybody wanted, all because of the presence of someone who has, quite frankly, been at best mediocre at their job. And it could be that maybe Ben Johnson doesn't have a bad opinion or a poor opinion of Trent Baalke. Now, this is where I want everybody to really pay attention. We keep talking about the Jaguars being comfortable. What about the new coach? When you see that the Jaguars have fired 2 coaches in 3 years, what makes me different? What is my comfort level that I can come in and we can do the things that's required to win and we can be in lockstep, especially when all of the talk I hear is that, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, is that the person that you choose to stay with in Trent Baalke has a problem with being in lockstep with coaches. Here's what Ben Johnson probably knows and understands. that the Bears did a better job of telling him that they were going to be a coach-centric team and allowing him to come in and imprint his entire fingerprint and DNA all over that franchise, because they have admitted that they are morbid and they need that. And they've never had a 4,000-yard passer, and he's going to help them and he's going to help Caleb. Whereas in Jacksonville, it's like he's a mechanic. We need you to fix this car. But we need you to fix this car with that guy who may have been the one that broke it in the first place. Then it comes down to having a choice. Then when that choice is made, because you didn't start off clean, you put yourself in the same situation as the Bears, and now things are even. So now the comfort of Ben Johnson and his career choices, remember, he wasn't comfortable with Washington last year. The comfort of Ben Johnson and his choices, with his shot that he's going to get, he's going to bet on himself more than he's going to bet on him being able to work with somebody that has really never accomplished anything that should give them the kind of cachet and comfortability that Trent Baalke has. That's the difference. And when we talk about messaging, we talk about communication. Shad Khan, when he had his press conference with Trent Baalke, sounded like someone that made a whole bunch of excuses. It did not sound like someone who felt that he needed to go out and get someone to come in here and really be the egomaniac that he said he didn't want when he first bought this team, and to really, really be coach-centric. Shad wants everyone to work together, but he has a structure that is built and invites distrust, in my opinion. There's no reason both people should be reporting to you separately. If we're all in lockstep, why are we talking to you separately, and why can't one of us speak for you knowing that he's speaking for us? I think that happens when there's a thought that Shad feels like he has to guard against Littlefinger backstabbing somebody. If that even exists to the point where you need to separately have your coach and your GM talk to you, what are you going to have them tell you the same thing twice? Is that what you're worried about? Why do you independently need? This ain't something like, okay, where here's my quality control guy and my inspector general, and here's the person doing the job. Are you okay? Are you okay? When you have a successful organization, there's only one voice for that entire organization. That's not just externally, that's internally also. When you talk to the Detroit Lions people, wherever you talk to Ben Johnson, if you talk to Campbell, if you talk to the GM Holmes, if you talk to Aaron Glenn, if you talk to the punter, if you talk to the dude that runs out and gets the tee off the field, they all sound the same way. The voice of the Detroit Lions is Dan Campbell. The many voices of Dan Campbell is anybody you talk to in that organization. That's what's missing here. That's what the fans don't understand. And that's what I don't understand. It's like, it's not worth it to keep Trent Baalke. It ain't like he's that great at his job. It's just not worth it, whether you think it's a hindrance or not. It's also not worth it to have this, you come talk to me and you come talk to me. You're already a thin organization based on your own assessment. Why do you have more than one person talking to you when you're thin? That doesn't make sense to me. It absolutely does not make sense. You're talking to the coach, you're talking to the GM, you're talking to the players, admittedly separately. When you're talking to a whole bunch of people asking questions that looks like you're either going to get the same answer from different people, or you're going to get a different answer, and you're the one that has to figure out who's right and who's wrong. To me, that is the problem. And I think more than anything, Ben did not, if he was in line to be the coach, I don't think he ran from Trent. I think he ran from Shad. I think he ran from that structure. You better hope as a Jaguar fan that him running from Washington last year and then them being successful can happen again. But I'm hearing all of these people saying, well, he ain't all that anyway. Look what he did last year in Washington. You just saying that because he chose somebody else and he didn't choose you. That's like getting mad at a girl for choosing another dude, and then you player hating, talking about he ain't all that. Yes, he is, because if he wasn't, you wouldn't even be thinking about him. All right, man, make sure you tune in each and every day to Locked On NFL. You get a double dose of NFL coverage. Tyler Rowland hits you like a shot of espresso early in the morning, and I'll slide through at about 2 o'clock in the barbershop and give it to you like you can't get nowhere else, with the use of local experts who know your stories from the Locked On Podcast Network, from around the league. They know the stories of the league better than anyone else. You guys take care. Good talking to you. If anything happens on the coaching front, I will be the first to let you know. Take care. We'll see you next time.